Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Rae Show. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to make another marble today out here in the torch shop. I got some ideas rattling around in my head. So we're going to just fire up the torch and jump into something, and I don't have a real preconceived idea of how this is going to turn out. So we'll just kind of see where this journey takes us. It's going to be much the same as last week's marble to start with, but then we're going to go some different directions with it. And I'm going to kind of rely on some gold fuming, try and generate some interest in this marble. So we hope everyone out there is doing well as we're getting into the later part of January and 2026 here in the Bitterroot Valley of Montana. Still no snow on the ground. Temperatures are colder, so that's kind of getting a little bit more like normal, but still very unusual weather. But definitely was cold enough this morning. It's taken me a little while to get the shop up and running. Try and do some warm-up work, pulling out some stringers for the backside color, and I think I've got my colored glass laid out. So we'll just start out cleaning up this 19mm rod that I'm going to work from. And I need to build up the initial gather here to start from. I'm going to flatten the end of it and start building off of that. So the classic people ask is like, well, how do you get that stuff inside the glass? It's like, well, everything you see inside the glass at one time was on the outside of the glass. And on this type of marble where you're looking at it through the lens that's going to be basically formed from this same glass rod that I start with, everything builds up from the inside out. So it takes a minute to get the quantity of glass built up here that I want to start with. I'm going to grab some defects in the glass. I could drop out of the flame and grab it, but if you work fast enough, your tweezers should be wet to start with. Should have a water jar, can, whatever. And then as long as you jump in the flame really quick and pull out of it, you just don't want your tweezers to sit there in the fire and get hot. So as this is gathering and building up and you keep feeding in the raw clear glass stock, you can see some surface change up there because it's squeezing a bunch of the outside layer of the clear rod into this zone right in here. So just trying to get some clean glass to begin with. I'm going to give this a moment to settle. So I have my little roller here that's just a tin can full of metal scrap. Surprising at how it gets the job done. It's kind of easy to move around, position different places you want. You can just rest on one side of it or the other to do different things. A lot of times you just set it there to get both your hands free. Okay, so I've got a graphite plate down here. I'm going to just do some flattening on this end. As you do these kind of press cycles, like that one, you can see it's a little, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little canted off axis. So each time you press, you try and kind of correct for the anomalies of the last pass, and rotating it around helps. So some of this sequence, I kind of want to start with a bit of a canvas here, an area to work from. So I'm going to start out, the first thing I'm going to do is some gold fume, but I want this to cool down. Seems to work better when the glass is a little cooler before we start throwing some gold fume at it. So let's see if we can get this angle to work. This is a little less than ideal here, but we'll see what we can do. So get a little bit on there, and then let it cool down a moment. Come back into here and continue to build up a little bit more gold. Okay, well, that's our starting point. I'm going to use some small piece of glass and put some spots on there. So my idea is to still be able to see down inside marble, so I want to do a row. I want to burn out my gold here. And of course I'm not very much on center, but we'll work with that. I'll come back around here on the outer edge. I think that's all we're going to do to start with. Melt this in. Pick up the oxygen here and try and burn off fume around in between. Okay, we're off and running to got something started. Okay, next is going to be another gold fume layer. So I got kind of a goofy ventilation setup here. And some of these things is just kind of right in the way to do what I want to do. So I probably should make some changes to that. I think I got some fume on there. Then we're going to do some larger spots. I'm still going to go kind of around the outside and avoid the inside, the center. Okay, a little goofy, but that's the way I roll. A little goofy. Again, we're chasing away some of that excess gold fume. Now I need to do a little bit of shaping here, I think. Some of the shaping, I'm just trying to do it with the flame. So I'm not really trying to do a compression concept, although some compression is going to happen. Trying to just build up layers here. When you get more fume on top of fume, it gets a little harder to see where the new fume is going. Kind of have to operate with a little bit of faith. So we're going to do some clear. So it's getting kind of tricky visualizing where the previous pattern is at. Oh, and that didn't stick very good. You put down glass on the fume and it's not hot enough, it doesn't get a fusion going on. So I kind of made a mess there. And then I'm going to switch to doing some yellow, transparent yellow. Try and fire that in. I'm trying to get this core to condense inwards. So I'll do a little bit of pressure here. I'm not sure if I got all the fume out of there, but we're going to add a big dollop here in the core. Now they're starting to rethink how I built up these layers. I probably should have done that at each step. Burn up the gold and then add clear in the center. So some of these marble concepts I play around with, you know, this is not a good example or iteration perhaps of the technique I'm trying to mess with, but you got to start somewhere. And most times I'm sitting here at the torch doing these videos, this series, I'm trying to do things a little different, things I haven't done exactly before, and see where I can go with it. So trying to do just layer after layer after layer here. And then I've got some of this, what is this, purple lilac. I'm going to do some of this around the outside. I'm getting a little confused by where I got my dots, but that's okay. Okay, as soon as we clear out that core, yeah, that was the trick. I should have been doing that at every step. Adding a clear part there to the center. So I'm trying to draw this out and eventually kind of build out to a cone. I probably already have too many things going on here, too many layers, but purple lilac is causing some strange effects there, I think. Got a lot of halos going on. I'm gonna leave some of that. All right, we gotta chill down here. Okay, another layer of gold. I'm trying to do a little bit of color accents here and there. Some kind of subtle. I think that's enough craziness going on inside there. We're gonna have to move forward. So now we got to get this shape going into cone shape. Clear out that center. That gives us a little bit of a structure to think about moving towards. It singed my arm or my hand. That flame can shoot off of what you're torching and come out and grab you. Okay, now we're kind of getting there, so we're going to use some gravity to pull this out. That was just looking kind of cool. I'll sharpen this angle up. Okie dokie. Gonna move on now to starting to set up the background. I'm gonna use some red frit. So a lot of times when I'm doing this frit application, like at this stage, I just as soon have the core be pretty solid. And then we're going to heat the surface enough to get the frit to stick. And hopefully we're going to get that red incorporated without it getting too grumpy. So we want kind of a intense but fairly quick heat up here. And bringing that cone shape kind of flat, perpendicular to the flame. Okay, drop into the frit. And we'll come way out here in the outer reaches. Try to warm that up gently. Okay, get that melted in. Okay, the next thing I was going to do is some dark cobalt. And I've been sort of debating whether I'm going to do a fume to lay this down on or not. I think we're going to go for a little bit of silver fume. Okay, I'm going to go heavy with this dark cobalt, but keep an open pattern. I'm just going to let this melt in on its own. Again, my angle, I'm kind of getting this cone flat to the torch. Okay, that leaves us with some open spaces. Okay, see if we can cover up those open spaces. Got pretty well covered. Except for at this very end. Well, we're getting there. Crazy offset. That's all right. Okay, done with that one. Now, back to gold fume. Well, it's still kind of a bit of a flower power effect without using a whole lot of aggressive compression. I was also hoping to kind of see down the core. I'm not sure I did a great job of that, but we'll move on. One thing I kind of like about having these flip-up shades is I can kind of set it to where it's a split view. I can look through the shade or without it. Sometimes kind of useful. I didn't get very much gold down on this outer surface. Could have used some more, I think. Well, we're really hoping everyone is doing well. Part of doing well is self-care, and part of self-care is good, clean water to drink. So, use this opportunity to plug our sponsor, Epicwater filters. We've got a link in the description below where you can get a look at all their products. And if you should choose to purchase anything from them off that link, you get a small commission, and it's your chance to help out our channel and get a quality product that can really give you a good leg up on your health. We encourage people to check that out. We're enjoying our pitcher water filter in our refrigerator. Okay, we come up here to the edge where the color starts or stops, depending on how you look at it. So we just come right up to the edge, but not really going over it. These little subtle pieces of the puzzle like this do come into play with the optics of the marble, and you can try on your own to do some different arrangements. I'm just showing what I do, what I've found out by the style that I do and what I like the results of. But you may have a different aesthetic or different look that you're after. So I put the clear glass all the way up there on the edge, and then I push it in and push it over. So it's very thin along that outer edge, if you will. And then this front little point of color is left sticking out. So carefully kind of guide that glass back around that little end point. And then we can melt this in just a moment. Grab another stick of glass here and build up the bulk that we need to make up the back side. And this layer of clear glass is really pushing that and containing that interior cone shape. And this is really kind of the whole trick to vortex marbles in general, is this layer right now. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what this marble turns out like. It's kind of just nice to come out to the torch shop. Took a little bit to warm it up, but it's comfortable right now, and it's kind of a nice time to just hang out with the fire, run some glass. I am somewhat privileged in the sense at this stage of my life I'm not out here trying to bust out a living. Been there, done that. It's coming up right on 33 years that I've been doing glass work, and I've built a home, raised a family. Most of that is back in the heyday of making soft glass beads. That's really where I work my tail off. Going back out to the shop after dinner, putting in a lot of hours. And at some point I did back off, even when I still needed the income. I did back off some just to make sure I didn't cause my body too many ailments. A lot of people, they just push and push and push their body to do things it's not happy with, and they wonder why they have carpal tunnel and back problems and all these issues. They want the doctor to somehow fix it all. Alright, got a bunch of glass built up. I'll just melt it until it does its thing. It'll round out, fill in, smooth over. Just let glass do what it likes to do. It's rotation, heat, and gravity. We can direct, to some degree, we can direct how much heat and where we put it, but our input of a torch flame is not very precise. A lot of these steps, well, you can fast forward in the video and see, but to do sort of a time lapse to see how these shapes are changing, because it happens kind of slowly in real time, but there's a lot of stuff moving. Glasswork involves quite a bit of time-consuming steps of heating up and then cooling off, so that you can do something different and heat it up and cool it off. And when you're working at a smaller scale, the biggest problem people have the tendency is to work the glass too hot, have it so hot it's just completely out of control and you're not getting any results that are exactly what you want. Sometimes glass pushes you to slow down so that you can speed up. Well, we're kind of going to let this fall back onto the lens side. Okay, that transformed into the required parameters I was looking for. Go on to the next stage. So we're going to do backside color. And let's start off with Butterscotch. Okay, then some Aqua. And then the last one is going to be Indigo Aventurine. Getting a little out of the groove there, but yeah, just a couple of bubbles here. See if we can get rid of those. Okay, now that should do it. Melt all that color in. It's important to get this well melted in. Kind of look at the silhouette of the glass, and you're trying to decipher whether it's smooth or bumpy, ripples, whatever. Look just over the top edge. Okay. Let that settle down for a minute. It's a good chance to take a little sip out of the coffee mug. Some of the artwork that Rae works on. Got our his and her dragons, and then our logo. You can check out that artwork in the description down below. And also links in the description below to our Etsy store and other links of interest. Okay, got our tungsten pick. Okay, and what we think is kind of the point. So hopefully we've got the end point picked. Picked as in chosen. And then we've got some curves that broke loose. Otherwise, we're looking pretty good. Stayed pretty much on center. I kind of waited a good pause before I started doing the raking, which makes everything a little more stiff, requires a little bit more heat to, I want to say follow along, but actually you're leading, the heat you're leading along the head of the pick. Yeah, we can use our marble mold now to start things shaping up. At this phase, we don't really have to worry too much about the shape. I'm going to punty up and move on to building up the lens side. Not messing around, kind of offset my punty a little bit. Give it a little heat, get it back to where you want it. So we're going to work on building up the lens. We want to try and get this glass at the transition zone between where it was heated and where the manufacturer rod is. There's a bunch of fume crud there and stuff that's going to get incorporated into the marble whether we like it or not. And then I try and rip some of that out in a few minutes to get this built up. So all these steps, this is just one way of doing things, my way, but I'm just sharing what I've picked up and what I've observed and how glass works for me. Different people have different techniques, different torches, different style. It's always good to watch a variety of different glass workers do their thing. I tend to be kind of on an outlier because I haven't really had any formal training of any sort when it comes to glass work. And like I say, I started out with soft glass beads for many years. Probably 150,000 little beads. And then at some point I kind of switched to boro. I kind of run through the gamut of beads and little pendants and soft glass. And the big thing to me, the difference between the soft glass world and the hard glass, the boro glass, is the clear. When I started, it was Moretti, but then it was bought out called Aventurine, whatever. There's different soft glass manufacturers, and their clear kind of sucks. It's not really that user-friendly. It's not that clear. It tends to really have scuzz and bubbles and defects in it. It's very difficult to build up a large mass of super clean clear glass in the torch world. In the studio shop, where you got a furnace type work, that's a different animal. Then they've got some nice clear. And that was the direction I was headed. I was going to do that. And then life happened. And at this point, I'm kind of glad I didn't go down that road, but that's where I was going to go. Okay, we get this to where we think we've got enough clear, an excess of clear. Come out here to our pinch roller, cutoff roller. And you can do that more than once if you want. Get it down to a small connection that's easily flame cut. So this process here is trying to rip out some of the messed up glass and clean up that edge. So we got some frit and whatnot that spilled over the line. So we really appreciate you folks that hang out watching these videos. If you're watching this now, really appreciate you. I come out here and do these marbles. I'm out here in the torch shop by myself, but you're kind of along for the ride, so I try and behave. The funny thing is, for years and years, even without camera running, I tend to kind of have a running monologue in my head of what I'm doing. That probably doesn't make any sense. Maybe too much information. But it's kind of second nature, I guess, having someone looking at what I'm doing. You just hope you don't have any big screw-ups. Hopefully this recording is still running properly. Last week, for some reason, the computer, the program, had a glitch and stopped the recording right at the very end of the marble. It was bizarre. So it did capture the whole thing, but it was unexpected. Haven't had that happen before, so I'm not sure what glitch happened. And we'll see. Hopefully you catch all this. Okay, I think we got all the scummy glass off the surface. Okay, we got our little pill shape. I'll slowly get this coaxed into a round marble. Move some stuff around here. Use the L marker to square it up. I'm going to use some fast spinning while it's on center. We're going to pull off a little bit of glass off the end here. I sometimes threaten to do this, and I'm kind of glad I didn't do it, but okay, we got about all the front lens rough shaping we need to do. Kind of a little bit of a flame polish there, and then get out of the heat. Okay, we'll cut off this Plenty on the back end. A lot of gyrations there, trying to keep it rotating. The bunty connection is pretty soft at this point. This step is where you need to give it a minute. Try and soak that heat so that you don't distort the decorative glasswork on the outside or inside. You don't want to change too much the geometry of the inside cone shape. It flares out. It winds up being kind of a fluted interior if you look at it in cross section. At this phase, I always wind up having this little funny step between the clear lens on the front and the vortex marble half on the back side. I kind of like to get the whole thing pretty dang hot before we do any tooling. This step takes a little patience. So just down to the shaping, all the color, all the pattern, all the work is basically done, but we need to get this into a round marble. I don't know that I completely achieved the core that I was looking for, but instead of the typical compression feature that's kind of up in your face and then draws down to the bottom, I wanted this to be kind of cascading effects so that still be able to see in the middle. So I'm not sure how successful I was at that. I think I kind of came away with the idea of how I could do it a little better next time. We're getting close. And we're warmed up, that's for sure. And a lot of times your feet get cold when your body is overall chilly. Right now my feet are kind of hot. Kind of uncomfortably too warm. I want to kick off my boots. Okay. So we're looking pretty good. I'm looking at the reflections and so on. So once you get to this phase, now, for all that work to get that marble screaming hot, we want it to cool down. So we don't want the core to be disturbed at this point. And then, when we heat the back, we're just doing a flame polish. We're just heating the surface. Make it nice and smooth and glassy. So we're going to do slow rotations. Marble this size, it takes so long to get heat built up into the core of it. You don't have to worry about overdoing it too much right at this stage. I do want to get that surface nice and fused. And we'll come out of the flame and let this calm down. So we're getting closer you get to the end of the marble, the less you want to screw around with it. You know, you get the shape where you want, you get the outside layer flame polished. Now you don't want to mess it up. And the clear front side is a lot easier and faster to work. So that comes together pretty quickly. So, one cut that funky off. And the next thing that's very important to dig out where that bunny was attached. So we have an attachment that clear on clear will give some disturbed glass right into that zone where it was kind of mixing or interfacing the two different, even though it's the same brand of glass, the same chemistry basically, it's always different. One piece of glass to another. So you wind up with that very front face being a little flat. So now we're heating up that clear and dropping it, letting it pull out a bit. Alright, so we got a little glow going on. Come in here to the marble mold. Wait just a moment. Come in from the back side where it's solid. So that, if it fills out the marble mold, you'll get some little concentric rings kind of on the very end. And that is one good indication when you've got it kind of filled up. But, oh, that one got an issue. You get things nice and hot, sometimes you'll see stuff you didn't see before. Unfortunately, that kind of sets you back a step. Now that was clearly had gone way out of round. If we kind of work our magic in the marble mold, introduce it gently and rotate it, it'll pretty much put that all back together in one pass. So once more we'll go in, and this time we're just trying to kind of spin it up. Again, we're kind of getting the subsurface glass, let it cool down a little bit, firm up. So then when we do the plain polish on the front, we don't have to worry too much about that overall shape going wonky. That's looking good. I'm going to check some reflections. All right, well, it's looking pretty cool. I'm going to do one more pass just for good measure, especially on that very outer front face. Kind of heat that up. Give it a minute. Yeah, it kind of depends on how the lighting hits it and what angle you're looking at, but you get that layers of gold fume, and then you build up that pink colored glass. Okay, we hover over the marble mold and get our tweezers wet. Show that attachment. And knock it loose. And don't drop it at this point. And a lot of these steps are at the end. There's a certain amount of timing that happens. It's kind of subtle. But you can get into issues if your marble mold is too cold. You put your hot glass into it, that causes stress in it. You put it in too soon, and you risk making a mark, making a dent. Here we go. Anyhow, thanks guys for hanging out. Worked out pretty well. Didn't know exactly what to expect, but of course the red in the background you can't see at this point, so it'll look a whole lot different after it comes out of the kiln. So I'm anxious to see what it looks like tomorrow. But for today, we're all done with this marble. Thanks so much, guys. Take care of yourselves. Take care of those around you. Have fun. Enjoy. And we'll see you on another adventure another time. Check it out.